Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Pound Ridge Library Board of Trustees meeting. I'll start by making sure we have January 21st, 2025. I'll start off by doing a quorum count. When I call your name, please signal that you're here. Bob Bellhouse, Richard Levan, Selena Shen, Lexi Gallo-Cook, and Benefico. Mike Clark.
Here.
John Cristiano.
Present.
Christmas night.
Thank you. And Valerie Nelson is here. Jenna Wise is ill tonight and will not be attending. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes from the December 17th meeting?
I move to approve the December 17th, 2024 minutes.
Anyone second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. John, seconded. Who I heard first. All right, let's set our meeting for February, which I know we've got school breaks and all sorts of things. So I think normally it would be February 18th, but I think that's school break week. Yep. Should we try for the 25th? Is that too late? 25th? Can everyone do the 25th? 7:30? Jennifer? Okay. You can't? Okay. All right. So February 25th, 7:30 will be our next meeting. Mike, treasurer's report.
We'll review that. She says she has some experience in how to do it. The way it's set up is that any thing that's submitted by Heidi as a sub-user, more than $2,500, has to be then go to the Chase website, and one of us signers has to approve it. Jennifer informed us on the 17th that we received the final installment for the New York State construction grant. I'm assuming that Heidi will deposit it. I haven't seen it in the deposit yet. And then on the 20th, I transferred $90,000 to cover the expected warrants that we see today, although there's been some discussion about what we should do with that. Our accounts show after the transfer that we have $120,000 in checking and only $17,000 in savings at this point. But what happens on January 24th is that one of our 3-month CDs matures, and I've sent a message to our bank representative that should not be renewed, and we'll use that for now to bolster the savings account. And I think that was about the interesting things to say.
Thanks, Mike. Jennifer, are we able to project tonight or no? No.
Can I ask a question in the meantime? How much are we expecting from the CD once it matures, once it comes mature? Approximately.
202,000.
Significant.
And also, I think we're expecting some checks, right? Reimbursement by the foundation.
Eventually we're going to get
that.
the reimbursements
exactly.
from the, yes.
So we may be able to put it back in the CD once, things.
Yeah,
flesh out.
John and I were talking, we'll have a committee meeting about how to possibly use some endowment cash that's free to kind of smooth out things here.
Thank you. All right, so next we're going to look at the warrants. Jennifer, we're still having, I mean, just so everyone knows, Jennifer's having technical difficulties. So if folks need to see things, we can. Okay. Yes, warrants. Does anyone have any questions about anything they saw? I know that we had a bunch of big bills come through.
On the second page of the invoice summary, there's a category of addendum. Um, Is there anything significant in the fact that that's addendum rather than? I'm looking at the invoice summary. Is that what we're talking
I
about?
think addendum is things that come in after Jennifer sends the initial, like first she sends the first list, right? Jennifer, isn't that what addendum means? Like bills that may have come in after she did the first prep.
Okay,
Because Jennifer's always prepared and then more bills come in.
thank
I
you.
think. But Jennifer, I just have a question about right click, that $1,000. Is that like quarterly, monthly? That's what it's going to be every month?
I got the bill from them today. Obviously, the one was paid for 17,000. That number, in that number is the 6,600 for the one-time changeover. I thought that was a separate number. I sent that to them. I said, I want to make sure it's 17 for equipment, 6,600 for labor. And that's, no, the 6,600 is part of the 1,700. So we saved $6,600. Yeah, nice supply.
Jennifer, I just had a couple questions just to clarify on the warrants then for what's related to the room. I'm just walking to the mic here. Creative library concepts. So those two are for the room, the 9,000 for Everbright, the mini light. And then the MasterCard, it looks like half the carpeting. Is that? Mhm.
Second, the 6,000 is for the pull-out shelving, which is like a enhancement to the front-facing browsing box. The 9,000 is 60% deposit for the Everbright feature, the one that's going to be reimbursed by the foundation. Thank you, foundation. And MasterCard is, yes, for the second half of the carpeting in the children's room.
Okay. All right. So, I mean, that's the big swing then in what we're going to see normally. Okay. Thanks.
So do I. The Westchester Library System, the 7,900 for WLS, ILS Jan to June. Is this it? Okay.
The last question, Jennifer, some of these insurance ones that come through, like Regan Agency, is that a monthly or is that? Do we have to pay monthly? Do we get a discount if we don't pay monthly? Okay. Okay, that's it. Thanks.
Any other questions? All right, so I need a motion to pay $100,004.90 in warrants. I need you on mic, Bob. Sorry.
I move that we approve warrants in the amount of $100,004.90.
Do I have a second? All those in favor? Aye.
Third.
Any opposed?
This is not about warrants. Jennifer, just because we're not on video, are we on audio on the, is this being recorded? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, the only other thing, if you want to try it, Jennifer, I'm happy to switch my laptop into yours and see if it works. Yeah, that's my assumption too, but I know we've done this before.
Thank you. One's audio, one's video, yeah, the white one should be video.
Yeah, because my laptop like blinked and came back on.
No, that's so disappointing. I have a bunch of good stuff in the,
Yeah.
I was gonna try the F10 on here because that's. Said we need a new video.
Now. Sorry, guys. For those on the phone, we're just trying to get video up.
Have you tried the magic turning it off?
Let's give that a try. Why not? I just don't know if I'm gonna kick off the people at home if I do that.
I mean, the other system, you said it might not be your last.
Right, the video system.
Usually the audio that gives us the trouble, not the video. You know, he was here messing with it, because the photography club said that wasn't sharp enough, and I wonder if he turned something on. Now I don't even see that projector on. Or gals. Now it won't even go on. And I see there,
Okay.
what's Epson?
Okay.
Never seen that one before.
No, that's just the projector. Yeah, that's just the name of the projector, but. Oh, hold on. Hold on. It's spinning around. Nope.
I don't know what to tell you. It was working this afternoon.
All right. We're gonna go on without projecting. Okay, committee updates. Done. Fund balance files.
Okay, I think the fund balance as it's written is fine. We want to make a couple of changes. One, looking at the amount. It's really, I'm not sure where the 275 came from, and Jennifer pointed out, which I agree with, if you actually just think about what our operating budget is, which is full round numbers, 800 or 770 something. So it's like 67 a month. So if you do 4 months, it's really like 268 as opposed to 375. I'm not one to tie up our money unnecessarily. So I'd recommend putting in something like 300, a nice round number. So we want to make that change. And then the only other change I recommend is the bottom of the first page, which for those that have the file, it talks about that will designate a specific account for this money. And I'd rather feel it just a little looser with us, just given an example this month of just how we're moving CDs around and this. I don't want to get caught up in what's defined. We all know we need at least that amount and we kind of always have it. So I would like to just strike that from that we need the specific account, just strike that sentence. It already says we need to have 300 of the capital reserve. I think that's should be adequate for what above it. But great flexibility in how we manage it on the treasury side. I think it's easier to have it not there.
Yeah, and I think just as we share our financials every month, right, as long as it's called out that we have at least $300,000, and we should, you know, we should be fine.
Yeah.
Yep, I agree. Anyone have any thoughts, questions, agreements, disagreements, debate?
Great.
All right, so next month, if you guys can bring the changes, we'll approve the policy formally. Is that all right? Or do you think we can approve it now?
I'd like to approve it.
With
I'd
those
say if you do
changes?
it live on screen if we had it, but it's literally changing what we have is 375 to 300. And then there's a one sentence that says these funds shall be deposited in a separate interest-bearing account that meets the requirements as set forth in the investment policy. And I wanted to just strike that. We always keep our stuff in
Is there,
interest-bearing accounts.
is there something in the investment policy that has to be changed now too, you think, or no?
No,
No,
we
okay.
can cover.
All right, so I have a motion to approve the fund balance policy with the two changes that John just recommended.
Second. Should I second that?
First, yeah.
I second.
Okay, there we go. John, made the motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you. Next is Mike Technology. Technology issues, Mike?
The account is in keeping. So it won't be designated, but it actually is separate, separate reporting. And no, we have some technology proposals.
Yes, we do.
So I don't know if you want to, Mike, you want to talk about what you heard from those people? Or do you
From the
want-
technology
Yeah.
stuff, yeah.
I had originally taken a proposal to the foundation about getting a new audio and visual system through a grant from the Arts, United Arts. And unfortunately, they won't let us do a pass through. Pass on that. But I still would like to consider redoing the audio and video. As you can see, it's just it's a little outdated. I did get two quotes. One was much higher than the other. One is from our existing person who installed this system for us, which they had to retrofit. We asked them to reuse as much as what we already had as possible. And that really didn't end up paying off in the end. So one quote is for about 67, another one is quote for almost 100,000. This would add video in as well as audio to it, and it would really bring us to the state of the art type of situation. We would have no more microphones to hold. They would either hang from the ceilings or we could do tabletop ones. All of this kind of stuff would be gone. It would just be a small little control panel like this to show what comes up on the screen. I think it's a worthwhile investment, and I'm just curious if the board that is interested in looking further into the proposals are in the Dropbox there.
Is there a material difference between the two ones?
No, it is pretty much apples to apples, but much like two artists would never paint the same bowl of fruit the same way. It's two different ones, yes. So the recommendation that I got was from Hudson Valley Audio Video, and I've gone to several venues of theirs actually. Up at the Mid Hudson Library, up at the Ramapo Catskills, and another one in Albany. So I've seen their work and I thought it was excellent. And I asked all of the people that were the venue controllers, and they all had nothing but positive things to say, and they were the lower bidder.
The higher bidder, what I noticed is there's significant fee for setup in terms of labor costs, and something like 50 hours of to set it up. So I think that may partly explain.
My question is just about maintenance and what that includes. A lot of equipment. So I just want to make sure that it doesn't all fall into or how we would decide.
Well, it's certainly sold as being pretty, user friendly and not a lot of, training in order to be able to use it, not a lot of expertise required in order to utilize it properly. It's really supposed to be idiot proof. You know, press that button and do this and press. It's literally on a little screen about as big as what we have now. And I saw it at Chappaqua up in Chappaqua Library. And I went up to the control room and I saw it and everything. So all the stuff that's the scary, intimidating stuff is in a locked box that the projector person never has to touch. The operator only has to look at a very small easy screen and they get into nothing easy.
And I guess just to follow up on that is there an included maintenance support situation?
I don't remember seeing that in the proposal. As it is now, we just call them when we need them and they need the remote in to fix what they need to, or if something with the full bill content.
Okay, I mean, I see that the more expensive one from DNR includes like hours of training or something, so I don't know if that's included for the other,
I can get clarification on that.
There. Hudson Valley one has a 6-month at no cost, platinum level
Yeah.
service, and you're that.
Great job.
That one has a platinum level service at no cost, 6 months. I don't know what the cost of that ongoing service is. But it looks like. I mean, they'll fix things, they're available to call. Just have to look into that. But honestly, with the difference, it's pretty.
Yeah, it's quite significant, 30%.
Yeah, you mentioned a control room at Chappaqua. Can you describe what physically would have to be done?
Sure, it's just like we have here in this room right now, the infrastructure exists in the closet across the stuff that we never touch. We only have control over this, but as I said, they're trying to retrofit to this theory pad. And you can see some of the remnants with all the speakers apparently are shot. It was a stopgap measure, and I think we leaked the gap the other side, we need to do something.
With a closet someplace?
Exactly like it is.
Like it is.
Yeah, and they run the wires over the hallway and into the room to get all of this. The behind the scenes stuff, behind that, but this would go away. This thing right here would no longer be. It would just be a small little control panel on the wall. And then it remote connects to a laptop, so I could be standing anywhere in the room to control it, not tethered to this. This would now just be a plain wall.
The Hudson Valley estimate includes the section what we need from you and what are the items of the new screen housing at 11 feet at 9. Do we have any sense of how much that costs or what we need to do to do that?
We do not, but yes, what it is that piece of wood right there that hides the screen. Oh, so I think it would be minimal cost. Yeah, unless you want to do something really fancy and this room just doesn't.
Can we ask Hudson Valley how much their platinum level service is? Like, again, I just think it's worth knowing if we wanted to ever pay for an annual fix it, no matter what happens, like, what are we talking about?
Happy to do that.
Okay. And, go ahead.
Is there installation on top of the wall? Will it aesthetically, will it change anything in this room, or is it behind this?
Right, so we would get rid of this cabinet altogether and put a smooth flat wall, and then a small piece, a little white control panel would be put on the wall. And yeah, so it really wouldn't affect anything. We could put it at any height that we want, you know, in order to accommodate the art and everything, but yeah, it's
And
a
the
pretty
cable?
skinny little area there.
Cabling?
Cabling all goes behind it and over. Yeah, and everything else is wireless. Wait a minute.
So this is just my view, that I'm happy to hear others, but there's no question that I think we need something. My concern is there's just a lot we're spending this year, and so at the end of the day, between the next couple of things we're gonna talk about is, you know, prioritization, right? And how much we have even access to spend in a given year, and ultimately we as a board, I think, have to prioritize the different things that we all want to spend on.
I'm happy to date. I do think that I would want to prioritize it. I've heard people in the community who are looking for a space and say, I can't get my laptop set up properly without getting like a whole rundown. So I'm not going to push out to hold a post my event or whatever. So I do feel like it's pretty state of the art that we all have meetings on Zoom or whatever, you Bluetooth, wireless, whatever. Get on the Wi-Fi and you're able to AirPlay or whatever the feature is, and we all probably have things like that in our home where we stream or mirror or whatever, but I would want us to be, so I would like to prioritize.
Anything else that anyone wants Jennifer to go back to either vendors with answers to questions? I don't think we're prepared to make a decision tonight unless I'm wrong. And just figured we'd rather go back once with questions, so. if
And we
anyone
can
has-
have them do a presentation for you too, if you like.
As long as you're gonna go back to them, you might check with them to see whether they know of sources, grant money or other things that people have used in the past. Other funding possibilities. And I'm happy to, if you want to have them come in, I'm happy to join you.
Great.
Do we need 3 quotes? Or no?
I can put an additional quote in, sure. Yeah, the quote for the United Art thing was only 14, so I didn't necessarily, but I can certainly. And if anyone knows anyone who wants to.
I think that's been our problem, John, is finding the vendor, right? Even when we did this before, I think we've had problems finding vendors that can do this. Often the people we talk to are for home audiovisual needs, and so it's been hard to find someone. I think Jennifer at least finding this new one. Because the first one, the expensive one, did this before and did the town. This one, at least, she's gotten from her contacts within the library, libraries of Westchester to find another vendor. So, I mean, I think our policy says that we have to get 3. I think we can agree as a board that if it doesn't exist, it doesn't exist, right? So.
I have a lot more contacts now since
Okay.
I'm in a different cohort. Of,
Yeah.
So I made a lot of contacts up at the New York Library Conference as well. So yeah, I'll spread that net wider. See what I can find out.
Let me just comment that, in support of making this a higher priority, that, I think we have an amazingly acoustic room right now. I think there's some incredible vocal concerts and piano concerts. So to my mind, we're halfway done. And so I think these proposals would really make this room quite special.
Yeah, so I'll flesh them out and get answers. You can bring myself and bring the vendor as well.
Yeah, the third quote, if you can get it,
Okay.
but it's just an education thing, right? I just don't have a point of reference to know is 67 expensive,
Right.
is 97 expensive, like I just don't have any feel for it. So that's why I just go over to then it's just too much information.
Logos and make sure you bring the free center. Makes sense to me. That's how I can make decisions.
Yeah, that's all. It was just for a point of reference. I don't, it's really cost, so with only 2 and the fact that they were so far apart. It just is a little confusing.
Agreed. One more question to her. Do you have a sense between the 2 proposals? I know you had mentioned where some mics in the ceiling perhaps are on the table, and it looks like they use perhaps different terminology when they describe the mics. Do you have a sense of how they compare in terms of where the mics are and how many are included? I think it depends on the room. Also, and how we do the video, if we have ones that are suspended from the ceiling, like a boom mic, or whatever they call it, like our clerk Madison is a film, and so he's kind of an expert on that kind of stuff. Those are the best, but aesthetically they might not work, or logically they might not work, or they might interfere with if we put a video in, and it's just going to be a bunch of hanging mics in the way. So I think it's individual to the room. But those are the state of the art ones would be the hanging ones. But Chappaqua has tabletop ones.
I was gonna say, when you think of, like, I tend to think of conference rooms I'm at work. And I can tell you, I've been in conference rooms where they're hanging and we're literally like. Towards the mic, where I was just in a really big meeting and we had ones, we each had an individual, wireless. And you could turn it on and turn it off, so you didn't have to hear background noise and all that type of stuff as well. I do think the road makes a huge difference.
You don't know what I've seen them in for the drop ones are much bigger than.
I would just add, it depends on what we're gonna use the space for, right? So for this, obviously the tabletop, right, but then when we're having the conversation, there's still probably gonna need something hanging or.
So what he had in here was in at least the Hudson Valley, the other one was, or for me to read. Was a podium as well, you know, so, and also the ability to have lav mics, which is what you often would use in a concert situation or an acting situation. So I think as long as we have all of those options for the room, I think it probably might solve that issue.
We're gonna pull the trigger, I would say, all of the options.
Correct. Yeah, it was on cheap last time, and there's no question. But we did go with what the town did and bought.
Yeah, and it wasn't even the expensive option.
No, it wasn't.
We did it.
Okay, any other thing governance? Rich, bylaws update, anything you want to share?
Very brief, we had a scintillating meeting, Valerie Leslie and I, about the bylaws for the library, and thanks to Valerie, we're pretty far along towards finalizing that. We're going to meet later in February at the time to be determined to make a recommendation to the board, which should come at the next meeting. The only thing that I'll preview is that I think is of much consequence is the virtual meeting aspect of this. There's some policy reasons for, you know, allowing virtual meetings, and there's some legal aspects to it as well. I don't want to say more now because I'm not really prepared to make an intelligent recommendation, nor as the committee, but we will next month.
Great. Any questions? I'll skip next one since Jennifer was going to talk on a press release and she stepped out of the room. Selena, anything on program development you want to share?
Just very excited to see the annual report. We're working through the edits there, but otherwise it's really exciting to see that circulation has gone up and all the numbers are looking really exciting. So yeah, that's all. Thank you to the staff.
And human resources?
And you're gonna love me. I'm calling for an executive session tonight. And Jennifer's not here, but I'm gonna ask Jennifer to stay. And it will be very, I'm hoping it'll be very short.
Thank you.
Jennifer, I just called for an executive session and asked you to stay.
Yes, thank you.
I skipped the public relations. Jennifer, do you want to do that now or do you want to do that at the end? Children's
Public
room,
relations. Oh, yeah. I'll do it in the director's report. I have some pictures.
Mike, long range plan.
Only a brief proposal. We decided that we would be more proactive in terms of reviewing our plans. And I would like to suggest that I kind of divide up our plan into little monthly kind of segments that we can just very briefly review each month and do it that way. If everybody's in agreement, that's what I'll handle the next meeting.
Sure, sounds good.
Did you want to talk about renaming the plan, 2025 to 2028?
Oh, is that something we have to?
I thought we should at least put it in the minutes or something. I don't know.
Yes, we're going to rename the plan. For the later.
Parking improvement. I think the last time, our last meeting, we talked about the traffic study that's been updated. I've reviewed it. I think it covers what the town engineer was concerned about. It's currently in draft form. We just have to take it off of draft. I'm not sure if anyone else had a chance to review it or not everyone was in that meeting, but really the biggest feedback that he gave was he thought in the report should be the concept of how many spaces we wanted to increase by. That the traffic study did not see that being a problem. So when we said if we want to add 25 spots, they wanted that like in the report that if you added 25 spots, it would not add an issue to the road. And so again, I think we did that pretty well. So I'd say it's ready. And then, but before we talk about what's next steps, we were gonna project this, I'm gonna pass it around instead very quickly. I had a thought on changing what we were originally proposing to the parking lot. We already have discussed the fact that we're probably gonna start somewhat all over with a new firm. And we had a history, you know, we started with adding 100 spots and it was 75 and it was 50 and it's never really been a final number. And so one of my thoughts was, instead of knocking down a bunch of trees, cleaning up the brush, etc., that's in the back, this concept that Jennifer has been using, the shared driveway and people are parking on the sides of it. I was like, why can't we just expand the shared driveway and have parallel parking spots on the side instead? Would that be cheaper? I have no idea. I'm not, you know, an architect or a designer, so I'm making it all up. But I just thought that was something that was worth pursuing instead of a traditional parking lot. Having, and then my other thought was, for those that were here previously, one thing that we had put in the original plan and we took out because of the cost, was moving the shared driveway. And so if you, and I have a picture of it, so I'll pass it around. In fact, if you want to start showing folks what's in the orange. What's orange is what we would have, which is at the end of the 5 spots, you would have on the easement a driveway that no one else would ever need to use, and it would just be for the 2 houses in the back. And then you take what's yellow there is the current shared driveway, and we don't use that anymore for a driveway, so it would end. And it would have a little turnaround at the end, so if anyone who is parallel parking at the end could turn around and come back the other way. I don't know if it's cheaper, in my head it's cheaper, but I'll be honest, I suggested gravel at one point, thought that would be cheaper than paving, and I was told I was wrong, so. But anyways, I had 2 thoughts of next steps. One is, we go talk to someone, whether it's the same guy that did the original plans or whether we find a new person that the planning board likes. Find out if it is cheaper, or we first go back to the planning board in an informational session where we don't bring an architect, we don't bring people, we don't pay anyone. We share the traffic study with them officially and this concept and get their reaction. So those are my thoughts. You have questions, Leah, or I don't know if you.
I'm not ready to speak.
No, you have to pass that. Those who can see it. No.
Yeah.
While you're reflecting, I have a strong preference for the latter proposal. Running something by the history of the world. I just think that makes sense to go step by step.
Yeah. And we can put that in the box. Jennifer scanned it for me when I got here. We were going to project it, but we could throw it in the share drive as well.
And the orange thing, neighbor.
So we know that one of our neighbors, the Carmichaels, loved it in the original plan. I can't remember if Pierce had a view back then or not. But I would think that any neighbor would rather have the driveway start sooner, so you don't have to go through the entire back of our parking lot to get to your house. And then we do know that Mr. Pierce has complained about people parking right on the edges of that driveway. There would be no place for them to park, so I would believe they would be supportive.
History of, we had already proposed something along these lines.
So we did, it was in our original plan, but it was about 100 grand, and we were getting expensive, and so, but remember, we were talking 75 spots. So we took it out of our original plan even before we went to the planning board to reduce the cost.
That's the second question, because we've said now, we've mentioned about gravel and the cost and whatever, are we trying to keep the cost particularly under a certain number or like?
Sure. So after we just talked about $167,000 AV improvement, right? I would say that the final parking lot proposal, and I can't remember how many spots it was, let's call it 50. I don't, actually, I think we went at 60 something, 62, 68, somewhere in that range. The estimate was about $500,000. The things that we pulled out to get to that $500,000 number was the orange, can I pass on this side, Nancy? This orange driveway we took out. And then the other thing we took out, which actually the planning board wanted, was originally, in the middle, when you, the upper and you walk down, there's lots of steps. We had originally done a meandering path, so you could push a stroller. So you didn't have to walk down steps. That also was pushing us costly, so we pulled that out. The planning board has mentioned safety multiple times, right? If we could add some safety features that everyone would like, and like I said, pull out this concept of 75 spots, it's gonna cost, $400,000. We might get more support from the planning board. We might not, it's a new planning board, et cetera, so who knows? So in my head, the most I thought it would cost is $500,000. I would love it to be significantly less. If you think about dollar for dollar what you're getting, right? Is it worth $500,000? Now, if you could do it for $250, would it be more worth it to all of us? I don't know, but it's just something that I'd love to try to figure out.
Yeah, so $20,000 a spot. That puts it in perspective, it's a lot. So yeah, we'd have to just figure out, is it worth it? But I'm okay to explore this, right? And then we can see where it goes, because I think none of us have that background to come up with a number. So we can figure that out. We do have the capital accounts, right, that are there. They've been there for a long time. Doesn't mean you have to spend them, but there is some concept of the money there. We've had a lot of success with grants and other things. So maybe that's a place to explore as well. My comment though is more about approaching the planning board. Didn't even go, and I have PTSD about the experience we had going to the board. Now, I know it's changed and all that. I would hope though that there's some back channel, some champion, somebody that can guide us to how to approach the board and do all that. So I'm all for going to them and saying, how do we have this approach? But that's our perspective into their board. I'd love to get some side conversation going and guidance of it. How does that board want to be approached?
Yeah, and I would tell you that, believe it or not, in previous years that was tried. And I do think that in the interim the board changed, and so that meant whatever was discussed on the side did not transfer over. So I guess the first question is, if anyone knows anyone on the planning board and is willing to have at least a preliminary conversation, is how would they like us to approach it? I think that's what we learned about this informational session, but again, that was a previous side of the board, although I think everyone else is the same, who likes this concept of coming forth first with a thought or an idea rather than a baked program, which is what we did the first time. So we can find out if that's still true, right? If that's still something that they want. And we can try that. The only reason I personally am still pushing for parking lot changes is, again, we just talked about spending $75,000 on audio visual. If they can't park here, what is the point of spending $75,000 on audio visual, right? Like if we either we have to stop doing large programs because we can't fit people in the parking lot, or we need to think about expanding.
I'm sorry, I'm talking a little bit, but one thing is, I don't think that we should try to put parking on the side. I think that might exacerbate the neighbors and.
Well, not if we get rid of that driveway.
No, I know.
Right.
Like parallel parking was another idea.
Only if you do the other driveway. Yeah. It was both.
Okay.
Yeah.
And nobody's asking for my personal experience, but it costs $100,000 to do the drive.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying,
Yeah.
you get 20 spots or whatever, like $20,000 a spot, seems like nothing based on my experience. Which is really bad.
That's the initial one.
You have to put budget.
There's winter maintenance, driveways, it's all. Driveways. The other thought I had, I agree with the idea that we appreciate it and use. I know some events in the town use the idea of park over there and we'll touch you over here. So that's, you know,
Yes, except the town bus isn't working at the moment and hasn't been for a while.
Well, yes, and we've done it for a few events. We don't need to. go
Yeah.
through all these, but a lot of the issue is when children's programming, the question becomes seats, strollers, and all that.
I mean, I just want to clarify, so. For anyone who's new, the parking, the new driveway would begin after the 5 spaces at the initial part. And it would swing all the way around with the Carmichael's property being the first home that it hit, okay. Then Valerie, the second part, where the yellow is, where we're parking now, right, where we're using that for excess spaces. How many spaces are we proposing then?
My personal view, if you're not doing 20 to 25, it's not worth it. I mean, that's just my personal view. If we don't add 25 more spots. Like, it doesn't, if you only have 10 more spots. It doesn't allow you to do the programs that we're trying to do. It might ease a little bit of the pain, which is what I think we've been doing to this point on that. Current easement driveway is having about 10 to 12 people park there. I think you need to do more than that if it's going to be worth.
So I think where we're saving is the original plan called for the orange driveway, but we were building a big lot.
Yes.
So now we're not building a lot, but we're using the existing driveway to add spaces where, you know, whether we use paving or gravel or clear out trees or whatever to make room is I'm understanding it correct. Okay.
Now, to speak to that for a second, my understanding is that this concept that we're now exploring does involve widening the driveway substantially. And with the turnaround, I remember that one of the neighbors had issues about headlights, which implicated a lot of landscaping and berms and things like that. So, but I'm a strong proponent of more parking. So I think that this is the way we should proceed.
Look, the old way might be cheaper. I have, like, I'm literally drawing on it, right? I have no idea. I do know that this orange driveway, my recollection was about 100 grand. That's Selena's experience as well, that the driveway itself is about 100 grand. So in my head, if that's 100 and that's 100, you know, plus extras, we're at 250 instead of 5.
That's a very long driveway.
But this one in the original plan is 100 grand.
That's not, that's.
But again, this was 5 years ago, right? It's increased in value, I'm sure. But anyway, so that was, again, in my simple mind, you know, a different way to do it. And I really think, I agree, John, first step is going to the planning board, with the report, the traffic study, and then a conversation about, hey, we'd like to add 20, 25 spots. There's probably 17 different places and ways to do that, right? How can we work with you to best, you know, get to that kind of thing? I don't think we need to show charts and graphs and pictures, etc. But I think we should have some ideas in our back pocket to have that conversation if we get there. All right.
We talk about parallel parking. Understand what you mean by that. Talk about parking parallel to on the side of that.
Yeah.
Or not diagonally, and is there enough room for 12 cars on each side of that to parallel park?
I don't know.
To Bob's point, wouldn't parking on an angle be better than? No, oh, okay. Because you go and you park at an angle, then when you leave, you back up, and then you go to this turnaround and come back out. That's just how I'm envisioning it. People don't parallel park.
Well, they're doing it now there, so that's why I said parallel parking. I also thought you could.
Maybe it's best to leave that word parallel out.
Yeah. The whole concept was we already have a driveway. We're currently parking on these sides of it. So can't we just pave it and expand it wider so that you can still do that without hitting rocks and roots and grass and et cetera, which is what's happening. Well, was before it started snowing. Okay, so we'll look into the next, I believe there's a rule, I think you have to get stuff 2 weeks before the planning board meeting, et cetera, so I have to look into the dates of all of that. And we will, at least ask to be on that planning board meeting informational. And then I'll share with everyone when that is, if that was informational. So our board.
What would be the plan to get the decided by the? We talked about getting some sidewalk advice to have.
Well, I think Valerie or someone mentioned, if anyone here knows anyone on the planning board, just to approach them casually and ask what's the best way to approach them on this new idea we have. Is that what it's okay. So we're gonna wait. So we're gonna go to the planning board with 2 things, like the traffic report and then our new idea. Is that like mixing it up too much? Or
We have to share the traffic report before we do anything else, right? Because they asked for it. So it's share the traffic report and then I think a general statement of, we're trying to figure out how to do this. I don't think we need to say, here's an idea.
Right.
I think it's just, we're trying to figure out how to do this. There's probably lots of ways you can do it. You know, we like to understand how we bring this to you in a way that we can move forward fast. So I don't know if people remember this, last time we went, I think I made a comment. You know, we are a not-for-profit organization, tax district, and every time we come here and bring people, the town is paying for it. And is there a better way to do this? And that's when they offer us the engineer for free that took a year to read our report. So I think that concept of reminding them, you know, Firehouse is going through it as well, right? Reminding them that, like, can we at least be a little bit open and accommodating to, you know, nonprofits and happening districts. Okay, that vote took longer than I expected. Children's room.
Well, children's room is, I guess, 95% done, although, Jennifer and I spoke about adding some, decor to the walls. And, Jennifer, the original was like some decals with trees and leaves, but she's come up with some other ideas, for, building, we can't see it on the.
It's the first part of the director's report, so why don't I just have?
Oh, okay, all right, so we're just gonna add maybe a few more accessories to the walls and then. Thank you. And then that's it.
Mike, you Mike.
Okay, should I just go ahead and start sharing the screen for the director's report? Okay. Okay, so the first slide is a picture for the photo release or for the press release. Thank you to Faye Walsh, formerly of the Pembridge Library Foundation, for coming and taking the photographs this morning. I think they came out stunning. We had gorgeous light with all the light bouncing off the snow outside. So this is one from the front of the room. This is one from the back. The grant that we were awarded from the foundation was for a total of $75,000. The total expenses to date is $72,702.70. That's a difference of $2297.30. Funds were previously collected from the foundation at the beginning of the project in the amount of $25,000. So I will be issuing a request for reimbursement from the foundation for $50,000. And I would like to propose that we spend the difference, that the amount that we came up short, about $2,300, on these additional canopies and branches, which is going to be, I think, on page 4 of your presentation there. You can see that they would be additional branches that go along the outer wall, and then canopies that would be on the wall as well as on the ceiling. I was walking through it with Valerie earlier, and she had some other ideas about adding other sort of 3D type of concepts, whether it be birds or clouds or butterflies or something. So what I was planning to do was to do the tree canopy in cardboard first, and I'll paint them and everything, and we can see how they look. And if we like that, we can go that direction, or I'll look into, some other 3D type of a thing to fill up the space between the top of the shelving and the ceiling, because it just does look pretty bare.
Yeah, my only question is why I suggested something else is it's the wall is green and the trees are green, and even if we go a darker green with the tree, I'm just afraid it will blend in. And then my other fear was you don't have a lot of room to have a trunk. And so it might look like it's just floating up there rather than be part of a tree. So that's what Jennifer suggested, if she can put it up in cardboard or something, we could at least see what it looks like. So I suggested maybe wood, butterflies, or birds, because they fly in the sky. So if you we talked about chipmunks and all sorts of things that were like that. So trying to come up with something that would at least fit the theme and look good. So I think we have a little bit of time to figure it out, but I think putting something there would be.
Yeah.
And to be clear, we can't use that money for something else, or I see in the next slide, we have other expenditures.
We do indeed, so.
Dollars is earmarked.
Exactly, that's what the grant was for. Because and then if we can go to the next slide, which is the AWE digital literacy tablets, that was a grant request from the foundation that was not approved. And so I was hoping that the foundation or this board would be willing to foot the bill for that. It's going to be 4 stations. You can see where we're going to be placing them. We built these computer stations around the first pillar in the children's room specifically to host these stations. They would be in complement to the desktop ones that we have in the further back in the room in the yellow circle, as you can see. The desktops take up way too much space for us. We wouldn't have been able to put a whole other computer station in that room. So I guess I'm wondering if the board is supportive of purchasing the literacy tablets.
Does anyone have any questions about them or the request?
I just wanted to point out that they would be in like point of service tethered to they're not just iPads that you hand out to somebody and they can walk off with it. They're stationary.
Just an informational question. Do we liaison at all with the schools in terms of these programs, in terms of the elementary school? Because I go to their website, they have programs similar to this. So I was just wondering how our programs would complement the schools.
We do. We have our advertising goes to the Pres PTA and also goes through all of their different advertising, and it's the eNote and the Pres Blast. So this would be something we could advertise through that, come and see our children's room, come and play on our all computers. And like I said, these are standard industry computers for the library because they don't attach to the internet. So they're much safer. There's no advertising, no worries about that. So they're very safe and they're top of the line, absolutely gold standard, which is why they're expensive. No doubt about it. They're absolutely everything that the desktop is. It's just in a smaller package.
Do these stations include software?
All of it, and it's all educational. There are language learning. It's all about literacy. So everything from ABCs and colors, and it's all with jungle animals, and it's a very rich offering. I think 300 different games and learning things that you can do within them. Yeah. And the kids love the desktop version right now. There's only 3, and the kids literally line up waiting for their chance to play. That's why I want to supplement with more, because they're not so good at sharing when they all want to play at the same time.
Questions? I'm gonna make a motion that we approve the purchase of the 4 stations for $13,899. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Right.
Okay, thank you. On to another foundation grant that was a request that was approved. Again, thank you, foundation. For the Everbright Mini, for the sensory room light feature, it's a $16,000 light feature. It's sort of like a giant light bright, but rather than having pegs of pieces that will come out, you turn the dials to change the colors. It's going to be incredibly creative. The sensory room is beyond wildly popular. It is an absolute hit. I don't know if anyone's been talking about it on the mothers group, but it's beyond what I was hoping for. Kids are actually skipping programs to go straight downstairs to go to the sensory room. So hooray, that's going to be a huge a boon to the room. So here's the next slide is a picture of the sensory room from a couple of different angles. I'm coming up with new ideas as the room is coming into place. So I've put together a plexi wall for suction toys, and the kids have been having a ball with that. These sensory wall with these sensory tiles, which are all homemade. I was not satisfied with what was available on the market. They all looked like pot holder size. They were about this big. And, they look like carpet squares. And I said, that's not going to do. So I made all these myself. And the next slide, you can see some of the publicity photos that Faye Walsh took today. I think are going to look spectacular with our press release. Jenna is just finishing up the finishing touches on that. And the next slide is the Everbright will replace the quilt that's in the room right now. It's going to be a bit smaller than that quilt, but I would like to put that quilt on this back wall as you walk into the room. We're just going to have to build some scaffolding to get it up there. So
And that's where it used to be. So did we have?
it used to be leaning against the hallway before we built the closet. It really wasn't given a good, place for it to. Not that I recall. It's the one that's hanging over the stairs, so we will have to build scaffolding to put it there, yeah. So I'd be surprised if anything was there. The next thing on your list there is the suggestions from the foundation to rename the sensory room. So the foundation said perhaps referring to the sensory room as the annex or something neutral and generic like the quiet room may make it more welcoming to the entire community as there is sensitivity around the current name. I did put this in the Dropbox, but there are issues, for and against. So some concerns is that it might label and stigmatize individuals who need accommodations. Others say it's clear and descriptive. Some say it implies that it's solely for calming and therapeutic purposes, missing exploration, learning, and recreation. The alternate view is that it effectively communicates sensory stimulation, regulation, on and on. So back and forth and back and forth. I don't have strong feelings about it either way, except that this is like an industry term in the American Library Association and all of the libraries. Sensory room is a recognized term. Some of the alternate options I brought up, just in case you were interested in pursuing that, but I did promise the foundation I would bring it to your attention, so I am doing that. And if there's any more discussion, feel free.
Did you come up with all of these alternative names?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, very good. I have a few favorites.
Yeah, I guess, my view of that is that I think it's a well-known term of arts, and like we've had sensory story time here for years and years and years, and everyone knows they're included, and it doesn't feel like it's sending one group not to be able to come and other groups to be able to come. So I'm totally fine with this.
Yeah,
I don't have like a burning desire. I don't really like quiet and calm, and people are gonna talk down there, and so I worry that it's kind of like the quiet car on the train where, we all know we're supposed to shut up. So I worry a little bit about using words that are like that, because I can just imagine, fights. And it is a meeting space too, so it's not just quiet.
Yeah, I thought sensory really captured it because it wasn't. It didn't have words like inclusive, and it didn't lead you in any direction. It's just a place where you go to experience senses. Like I thought it was a neutral term enough, but.
Well, so I love exploration and discovery. I think that would be something I would consider.
Yeah, I tend to like those exploration terms too, and I agree about the sound and stuff. I think that to know that it is a sensory room, but maybe it gets labeled something different, I like the idea of the annex, but I just feel like that word is a little bit more outsidery than It's so, but I like the concept of it being like something just like labeled something else, you
I
know?
mean, you could do a tag, like you could do
Right.
the exploration room, a place
Right.
where you, whatever, can simulate your.
Right.
Not the other person, that's Jenna.
Yeah, absolutely. 'Cause speaking of which, there's a sign over the stairway going down that says meeting room. And it really is not a meeting room anymore. And so we could come up with something that's, the exploration zone where your senses will get stimulated, something, whatever, like that kind of thing. Much like back at the back in the slide, the sensory wall, that banner that I had made. And framed, something like that. So it would really be like a welcoming. And I was even considering having the sensory tiles go down the wall. So like it could be part of the whole, anyway, so I'm always a million ideas, sorry. Okay, so yeah, what do we want to do?
By the wording of the statement from the foundation. There is a sensitivity around the term. Enough about what that position is.
Well, Karen,
I don't.
Were you a part of that discussion, Karen? Were you there when that was? Okay.
You need a mic.
Oh, let me.
That sounds more like a use issue than a naming.
Relating to, I guess the concern and specific use perhaps was what I got from it.
Yeah, no, I understand your relaying information, but it sounds to me like there's some voice about how we're using the room. I mean, that seems more important than the naming activity.
We did say in previous meetings that it would be a multi-use space. Okay, so we do agree to that, right?
Okay, so then we don't give much credence to that criticism. Not criticism. Oh, it's not you. Yeah.
I never a stigma associated with the word sensory one personally, but that's me. And I have a kid who's neurodivergent and, I don't think of sensory as only being for people that are on the spectrum or what, if we called it the autism spectrum, I could see the reaction. But we're not, and so for me, I have a 20-year-old who's not neurodivergent and she loves the little squeeze toys and all the same, you know what I mean? She's fun, right? So anyways, I don't see a stigma with the word, but others may.
I don't have a problem with the word sensory, but to Ann's point, it's a multi-use room, and so I think the word sensory does tend to sound somewhat restrictive. I think that may have been what they were referring to. Yeah. Yeah, but do you agree that it might just limit what people think about the use of the room?
Jennifer came up with this concept, which we appreciate, and did this because all of her research and trends going on, in other libraries, you know, and we had this beautiful space downstairs. You know, she came up with the idea for a sensory room, and that's the word we gave it because that's what it's called, I think, industry-wide. But then she made it clear to us, but we can use it for other things, which is great. So like, go back to what Richard said, is it a naming thing or a usage thing? So we trying to blend both, I guess.
Well, I think, no, but I think you put it best, which is that it's a naming issue, that the usage is clear. I mean, otherwise it sounds like we have to go back and redo the room. It is not. Yeah, so just to take that off, or just put on the table, and I think we should dispose of it. My own 2 cents for 2 seconds is, when I hear the term sensory room, first of all, I'm very respectful to what the industry does in the libraries, and I think that should be a guiding principle. The reaction of one person is, I thought it was a room with lights and sounds and darkness and, you know, yeah, things like that, like things would flash and. So maybe I'm the odd guy out, which might be the first time, but anyway, that's just a little input on that. I love the discovery zone, again, I think that's awesome, but again, enough said.
Touching on a point that Jennifer and Ann had brought up, you know, Danbury has sensory room, it's Yonkers in the sensory room, so I think there is value in identifying sensory room, given the use in the industry. That being said, because it is a multi-use, multi-purpose room, I really like, maybe annex isn't the word, but annex featuring Cambridge sensory space. Or something like that, where we have a term where, if you're familiar with the library, we'll call it the annex or the den or whatever it is. But then it's got the follow-up, I think Valerie and mentioned a tagline. So if you're not familiar with the space, then it identifies for those that know a sensory room, this is where the sensory room is, without making it exclusively a sensory.
Honestly, I'm perplexed that the proposal name was annexed, because specifically the person on the foundation, Jessica, said you don't want it to feel separate. You don't want it to feel like it's not part of the library, and annex very specifically gives that impression.
That's my issue with the word annex too, is I'm like, if we're supposed to be, if it feels like we're sending you to the basement, which we are. And I think our multi-purpose with it is meetings, so like, I can't think of something to tie the two together, but again, I'm not the creative person in the room, so.
The sensory annex.
I think maybe we table the.
I was gonna, yeah.
And maybe go back.
Yes, there's gonna be a question. So the question is, do we need it named before the question? If we do, then we've got to solve it.
Do we need, should we talk about the press release now, or should we?
You're on the committee, sure, why don't you
I
talk
mean,
about
I
it
don't
yet?
have a lot of things, just that we had a draft going around, it's pretty much final, I think, we're just waiting for pictures to put in. I think we could always choose the name after that, it doesn't bother me that the press release, it's not, I mean, maybe we can take another look at the press release and see if it's like capital S, capital R, or if we need to change some stylistic things, but the point remains, we're not changing the purpose of it right now and all of that, so I think the naming can be tabled until.
It is capital S, capital R.
Yeah, look, I think naming it for the press release would be good. I don't know if we have to land on it here, and quite honestly, we all need to vote on the name. We can figure it out and shoot it around to the committee or something and approve it. I think we've taken the input, I think we've given it time on this board, I think we can go ahead and then make some kind of decision. I do like, Jennifer, I think where you were going with it, is pick one of these names, so that anybody seeing it, I'm going down to the discovery, whatever. But you can tagline it of something, whether you use sensory stimulation, whatever, and then do it that way. I think we've satisfied for the input of the community and foundation and kind of.
I'm just, Cambridge Library unveiled new children's room and sensory room. What if, for now, why can't we just say and sensory not annex, sensory space.
Exploration zone, sensory space, yeah.
Sensory space I like. I don't know. And that alleviates using the word room twice in the announcement. I like sensory space for now, and then like.
Okay, moving on.
Sure.
I think the only other, you have the trustee education, which everyone should extend to. There are 2 hours for 2024.
Yes, and also, just for the minutes, if you can recognize that Pamela Corey gave us a $50 donation, and yes, that there's the upcoming trustee education events, particularly the handbook club on the 22nd, which is tomorrow at 5 o'clock. It's on advocacy. Because I'm mentioning that because I'm going to Albany for Advocacy Day, which is I think the next to the last slide. A day that we're going to go and meet with the legislators, and we're going to be requesting more money for operating aid, construction aid, ebook licensing reform. And it's a fantastic opportunity for me to network and get to understand how things work at the policy level.
Same for the construction aid includes parking.
Indeed, which was fantastic to find out. So I invite you to attend if you are interested. I'm sure you are dying to go up to Albany this time of year. Lastly, in your package, you'll see the annual report. New York Public Library, New York Public and Association libraries, according to minimum standards, are required to put out an annual report every year, board approved, to update the community on the progress that we're making as outlined in our long range plan. So I've handed this off to the Public Relations Committee. Jenna has signed off on it. I didn't get any more input from the rest of the committee, so I only printed 10 copies of this in case anybody had any input, suggestions, revisions requested, and then I can either just post it online or we can just print a very small number to put around. I think I got 50 last year, and I don't think maybe 20 of them went out.
Great. Looks good though, and good numbers.
Great. Okay, that's it from me.
Is this one page? It's in your- oh, I didn't know. It's in here.
Oh, yeah, there you also have the February newsletter, the printed newsletter.
Yep.
With February is a banner month. We are chock full of fantastic events. So that's why I wanted to put the it together earlier in the month to make sure that everyone knew about them and got an opportunity to register, because tons of great musical events in particular. I think 4 different art workshops. I'm so pleased that one of them is Hamlet, page to stage, just really fantastic program. So kudos to Marilyn for putting that together, and Alan's put together some new stuff for the children as well. So February is going to be one of our best months ever.
Great, thank you, everyone. Okay, any new business?
Oh, at the end of the year, we are kind of suspended our contract with Ken Gilman, facilities management. So I wanted to know how we're going to handle that going into 2025. Jennifer, you're going to take that over? Would that be part of your director's report moving forward? Yeah. Okay. Really what I found was 90% of what he was doing was if it couldn't be fixed in-house, he just called the repair person. I did that one time. And yeah, we'll update you.
Yeah. And I think the other thing, because we have done this before, so before we hired someone like Ken, it was actually used to be the job of the treasurer. Don't ask me why, but it was. So the one thing I would just ask everyone as trustees is when you're in the library, when you drive through the parking lot, if you drive down the shared driveway, if you see something, say something, right? So whether there's a tree branch falling, whether there's potholes, whether there's whatever, let's all, at least make it a little bit easier for Jennifer, now that we don't have someone doing that before. I don't know. Any public remarks? Anyone? Okay.
Can I add an anecdote about the space downstairs?
Maybe in my-
Someone on our foundation grew up here, and he said that the kids used to say it's like a haunted space, so they go down and they thought it was ghosts, and he was terrified.
Yeah, I have a public remark, which is that we spend so much time talking about carpet colors and erasers and pencils, which is all necessary part of the word business, but I don't think that enough of these numbers on the annual report are excellent. And I think that more should be said, or it should be underlined, the fact that Jennifer, Alan, and Marilyn and others have done a phenomenal job in terms of generating the programming, the usership and everything else. And I hope I can speak for everybody in saying that, but really, at least on a personal basis, kudos to all three of you.
Thank you.
Absolutely, and I think if you take a look at the statistics that are in that shared drive, which I know we looked at the end of last year too, when you compare us to the other libraries, it's mind-boggling in a positive way of how much we're doing and offering, and then how much people are partaking. Okay, we're gonna take a couple minute break and come back in executive session. Thank you, everyone.
Marilyn says thank you.